Good morning, hello MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday, January 27th, 2017. How's everybody in the chat doing today? Nice to see everybody there, active in the chat, chatting away before we even get started here. Hopefully, we don't have a repeat of last time we tried to broadcast from the office here, where it cut out. We have kind of the internet seems a little bit better. Got a wired-in connection here. Hopefully, we don't have a repeat of that. Well, today we're going to get some feedback about the Lunar New Year event that is going on as we speak. Quick little behind the scenes, we'll fill you in what we're working on. A feedback question for the chat. As always, Larry will have rewards as well with a trivia question at the end. So to start off with Lunar New Year feedback, kind of tied in with feedback that we got in the previous Feedback Friday. We made attracting event mice work in the event slightly different or in a slightly unique way. Like I said, based on great winter hunt feedback. We discussed ways of curbing sort of randomness and avoiding excessive unlucky stretches. So for the Lunar New Year event, the particular costume mouse that you need next will become slightly more abundant with each hunt that you take until you capture it. So this means it's still possible to get lucky and capture the mouse, on your first hunt or after a few hunts. However, if you're on the unlucky side of attracting that mouse you're looking for, over time it becomes easier and easier and easier to attract. So to sort of, curb just how random it can be before you get that next mouse you need. So we're wondering what you think of that approach of preventing excessive streaks of poor luck for a time-sensitive event. Hello, Apparently, the chat is just seeing me now. I was wondering why not too many people were saying hello. Well, hello, good morning. Okay, well that was peculiar latency issue. It says I've been broadcasting for 3 minutes and apparently we just started. Start again. All right, well, we'll take it from the top here. Hello, welcome, Feedback Friday. January 27th. So we're going to get started with some Lunar New Year feedback. And was discussing from previous Feedback Fridays ways of curbing the randomness and avoiding excessive unlucky stretches. And so attracting event mice in the Lunar New Year event, that particular costume mouse that you're looking for next works in a slightly unique way where each hunt you take, the mouse becomes more likely to be attracted on your next hunt. So it's still possible to get lucky and catch that mouse on your very first hunt or capture just after a few hunts. However, if you keep hunting and hunting and hunting and you're not attracting that right mouse, it becomes more and more likely that you'll attract it until you capture it, and then sort of resets and you move on to the next mouse. So we're wondering, what do you think of this approach to preventing excessive streaks of poor luck at an event where sort of time is certainly an issue? It can be frustrating maybe to have to wait too long. Some positive feedbacks, like it. Sounds good, love it. I like it, yeah. Seems like a good idea. And what do you think? Is that a good solution? Because we don't want to remove the sort of randomness or getting lucky and the excitement of not knowing when something's going to happen and the suspension, the anticipation, but just sort of a passive effect to make sure, okay, if you're just being really unlucky, because at the end of the day it is just randomness that you can't go too long with the stretch of poor luck. A question from the chat, is it better to have a good stock of cheese to hunt for the costume mouse as opposed to trying with a few pieces. No, it won't make any difference. It isn't how many hunts you've tried in a row to get the mouse, it's just in total. So if you hunt with 5 pieces of dumpling and you don't get a costume mouse, and then you switch over back to Gouda Super Breed to collect more dumpling cheese, when you are dumpling cheese again, it'll be your 6th hunt that you've gone without getting the correct costume mouse, so it just keeps boosting its attraction rate ever so slightly. Story-wise, maybe you think you're hunting all the other mice, so you're getting them out of the way, and all that's left is that costume mouse. How long is the streak? I believe 20 is a sort of magic number. If you go 20 hunts without capturing that mouse, it is extremely easy to attract after that. So if you've been trying for 5 hours straight and you just can't get the mouse you're looking for, and you need 8 of those mice, so it's 5 hours times 8, you should certainly finish it in 5 times 8 hours, 40 hours. Did I just get my luck? Did I just get my my math right? Yes, I can do 5 times 8. All right. Another question from the chat, do the charms, I assume you mean the Nitro Pop charms and Firecracker charms, do they help you get costume mice at all? No, they don't. I think Giorgio is adding some stats to those charms, but they were for Carl's cruise. They have no effect during this Lunar New Year event. I'll write that down as well. No effect. And there was another question as well that I can't remember that I already answered. All right, how can I phrase this? Well, I'll just write down a note here. And I'll write down an answer for my summary as well. I'll post a summary in the tavern, so if you're watching this recorded, you can head to the tavern for the summary and leave your feedback there as well. But we'll move on to a little behind the scenes, what I like to call a little sneak peek of what we're currently working on. Big grain of salt, especially today, because a lot of it's just sort of things that are in the planning phase, ideas that certainly a lot of this might change while we play test, or even as we prototype, flesh things out, brainstorm some more. We might end up just scrapping entire ideas. So I just want to kind of as a precursor say that everything we're going to kind of go over is certainly in the planning phase, but like to share things to get feedback before we even start working on things. Often that helps shape some of the decisions that we make as well. So what we'll go over first is planning future areas, sort of what we have or what we're planning for the year to come for 2017. Yesterday we had our second major content brainstorm meeting of the year, trying to decide on what do we want to work on this year outside of some of the things that we know we're working on, like the spring egg hunt and the birthday event. But after that, sort of thinking ahead to the summer, what are some of the things we want to get rolling on so they're ready to go for the summer. We took inspiration from the ideas and suggestions provided in previous Feedback Friday. If you remember last time I hosted Feedback Friday, I was asking for ideas and suggestions. That seemed to get a lot of response from the summary thread, as well as spurred a few extra threads in the ideas and suggestions forum. By all means, keep those coming. That's a great source of inspiration for us as well. Even if there isn't an idea that exactly speaks to us, a lot of the times it's themes and sort of direction and stuff that we take from that. And from all those replies, we saw a few themes emerge from player suggestions for more draconic areas, continuing with the rift areas, and more high-level challenges as well. As if player or watching this in the chat, maybe you can let me know as well if that sort of was the same impression you got. Was, hey, draconic areas sound fun. Keep going with the rift areas. You're curious to see where that's going to go and what new rift areas would be like, and just more high-level challenges, more high-level areas. I think somebody in the chat already mentioned or was already asking Grand Duke area with a question mark as well. And toxic spill being a suggestion as well. That's in the back of our minds as well. I think we've tried about 3 or 4 different iterations of how we could repurpose the toxic spill, but none have quite spoken to us yet or quite worked out all that well. And that's a good example that as we start to brainstorm things, a lot of the times things get scrapped or kind of we go back to the drawing board on things. Yeah, zombie invasion, that's a good suggestion as well. Haven't done one of those in a while. Yeah, Garbage Island, for those not aware. In the chat, some people are saying Garbage Island. That was sort of our placeholder title for one particular idea of how we could transform the toxic spill into Garbage Island. Well, so some of the results, taking inspiration from all the feedback we had from our meeting yesterday, we're currently brainstorming 2 Grand Duke / Grand Duchess areas, as well as the first Archduke, Archduchess area. Now we're obviously still very much in the idea and planning phase, as I was saying, so grain of salt, we don't have too many specifics to share, and plans may change as we sort of try to pull everything together. That said, what we're thinking is the next riff location being another Grand Duke, Grand Duchess area, and another Grand Duke, Duchess area that would follow the Labyrinth storyline. That would then expand into the first Archduke, Archduchess area that would come after sort of the Grand Duke location that's unlocked by the Labyrinth. So kind of seeing that flow go. We are also playing around with Varmint Valley a little bit, but I think we might kind of again revisit that a little later, and we're leaning towards more focusing on the Labyrinth just because it is higher level. It's a little easier to get to that Archduke path a little sooner. Questions from the chat. Burrows or Bristlewoods Rift. I do believe that is the next rift we are planning, so it would be a Bristlewoods. Unless as we started to plan that, if we changed our minds or if it just wasn't working out. Hunting in the King Stockade, a suggestion there. Well, if you write into support nicely, or perhaps write in not so nicely, you can be put into the King Stockade, no problem. But as for hunting in there, I think you'll get 24 hunts with trap checks, and that's it. After that, you'll never hunt again. Question of what would come after Bristlewoods, Tribal Isles. I do believe, yeah, Tribal Isles would come after Bristlewoods, and that's kind of exciting because that's where we're planning on adding Gouda string cheese when you get to the Tribal Isles Rift. So a Rift Acolyte was a question as well. Yeah, that would probably, I would assume we would work the Acolyte. That's the major figurehead in that normal storyline of Bristlewoods, so I think that would mean a Rift Acolyte mouse of some sort. Question about adding compass magnet and cubes to the Hunter's Hammer. No plans to do that. Some clarification from the chat. Any non-Rift locations next? Just one of those locations would be Rift. The other Grand Duke, Grand Duchess area would come after the Labyrinth. So it would be unlocked by completing the Labyrinth storyline of some sort. It would kind of tie in a little bit. So the Labyrinth is Duke Duchess. That would lead to a Grand Duke area after the Labyrinth, and that would open up then into the very first Archduke, Archduchess area. But those 2 areas wouldn't be Rift related at all. The Rift areas are a little bit more self-contained, so they kind of lead one into the next, and you get better Rift equipment from the Rift areas. And comments about Draconic. I think that Grand Duke, Grand Duchess area coming after the Labyrinth, we'd want to maybe tie in or start pulling in the Draconic power type a little bit and make that a high-level trap as well. Question about another law area. Is it still coming, or has that been tabled? That has been sort of shelved a little bit. We had kind of a bigger Varmint Valley area that would use law power type and sort of tie in that would come after Fort Rocks. But I think we've kind of put that back onto the Idea Bank shelf for now. We're having trouble getting it just to work the way we wanted it to. Someone in the chat asking about PNG files. You can write into support, and we'll get in touch with you that way because I can't really help you with that through this particular communication medium. Lunar New Year question about the Rooster base. Does it have similar stats to the Monkey base? I believe it's identical. It's very similar to the other various Lunar Jade bases. But this base is free this year. You don't have to pay for it. You don't need to own the original Jade base. You don't need to buy that and have it carved out. The adventure the generous trapsmith is handing it out for free if you complete the adventure and light 10 candles. Why not increase the stats a bit? Well, we decided not to. We decided not to and make it a free base, so that's kind of what we came up with. Maybe it was, well, we'll leave it there. And by all means, I welcome more feedback in the summary of the Feedback Friday summary that I'll post in the tavern. Let us know what you think of our plan of doing a Grand Duke, Grand Duchess Rift location, a Grand Duke, Grand Duchess location that would come after the Labyrinth that would potentially tie in Draconic as a power type, and then an Archduke location that would come after that. And that one would probably tie in every single power type in the game as well. So we're kind of planning something big for that. It'll be the first Archduke, Archduchess area, so it'll definitely require a whole lot of equipment. You'll want a whole lot of different types of traps to be going through. It'll kind of take a while, big storyline to go through and put all the traps that you've gotten over years of leveling up and playing to use in that one big first Archduke, Archduchess area. Even parental was a question in the chat. Potentially, yes. We were kicking around some ideas of how parental power type would tie in with that area, and I think it would work quite well. But again, grain of salt. This is all sort of ideas and planning, so that may change, and that might definitely get scrapped as we start going. But there was a way we thought we could tie that in. That would make sense. It wouldn't feel tacked on. It would actually make good thematic sense of why parental would be used in that Archduck location. Get your ducks in a row. But then that also raises questions of probably having to add another parental trap to the game. So that might be enough to sort of can that idea, but we'll see. This brings us to the next portion of behind the scenes, the next thing that we have working on that's coming a little bit sooner than those high-level areas that we're still brainstorming, and that is a Fort Rocks expansion. So this isn't a new area, but a expansion for Fort Rocks. We often add treasure maps to a location a little bit after the area comes out. Fort Rocks has definitely been out for a little while, and there's still no treasure maps. So we're kind of while we were wrapping up development on Fort Rocks, we had an idea of how to add an extra layer of challenge to the area. But we didn't quite have time to fold it into the original release, and we were curious to see how players would play through it, get some feedback to help come up with decide on a few uncertainties of how we wanted to add that layer of extra challenge. So what we're exploring is including treasure maps as a way of taking on this extra challenge for Fort Rocks. I think Jacob maybe mentioned this last week as well. So completing a Fort Rocks treasure map would reward a treasure chest as a chance of containing one of two halves of an item. And we're not quite sure of the theme of that item yet, otherwise I'd be more specific. Once you have both halves of the item, you combine them, and the resulting item can be used during dawn to enter the heart of the meteor for an intense showdown with a powerful mouse. The rewards for taking on this sort of long extra challenge would be generous points in gold, of course, being the biggest, baddest mouse in Fort Rocks, as well as a component for a powerful law trap that would sort of set the bar of new best law trap. So we're curious, what do you think of this idea of tying in treasure maps as a way of finding an extra hidden mouse in a location? Even depending on feedback, this is something we might want to explore for other treasure maps in areas to find additional hidden mice. So you complete the Warpath treasure map, you're finding the two halves of the Warpath item, you're combining them, use it in wave 4, and now there's a whole 5th wave to go through in the Warpath, or finding little extra challenges. So far, just positive feedback in the chat. That's good to see. Even wanted to make all maps like that. That's definitely something we're toying with the idea. We might start with Fort Rocks, see how this goes, kind of get some feedback, and a lot of times after you play through it, get some ideas of how, a few things to tweak and how to adapt that to other areas. Gauntlet Tier 9, yeah, I guess that could be another example of, you do these treasure maps, you find these items, you combine them, and now you can go to the next level of an area, a hidden mouse somewhere. Maybe even kind of feel similar to how the deep mouse worked in the iceberg, right? There's sort of a hidden way to go above and beyond and find one more mouse that is extra hidden. Crystal Crucible cheese, yeah, that's actually a good way to tie that in as well. The fungal cavern you're going through, and you're getting this extra tier, and then that's also a way to put your crucibles to use. For Fort Rocks, we're playing around with Dawn Dust, playing a role into it as well. Sort of that's the resource you get right at the end of the area, and this extra challenge would put one more use for that item to sort of make everything tie back down and filter into the last challenge so you can put all your resources to use. Yeah, and Ryan's pointed out that's a good suggestion as well. Sounds like a fun use for extra really, really shiny precious gold. That would potentially be a good tie-in where you're crafting a type of cheese from the really, really shiny precious gold or something. And by doing the labyrinth maps, you're hoping to find those two halves, put them together, and then you go to the super secret hidden Minotaur layer, and you have to use the golden cheese to attract that extra hidden mouse there as well. Crystal. Really, just making some notes. Yeah, flame shards, that would be a good use for flame shards as well. So this is something we're interested in, a way to kind of tie everything together, revisit an area, add one extra kind of hidden mouse, and tie in sort of that thing that you end up with a little bit too much from in the area would be a way to go above and beyond, get an extra mouse. Obviously that mouse would be extra valuable because it is harder to get to, and that would sort of give you something to put all those resources into to crowning, get that gold crown for the extra challenging mouse. There'd always be a use to put those resources to. Oh, and I just realized I put my notes in the wrong spot. Let me move those up in the old summary before I forget. And actually, speaking of Fort Rocks, I meant to switch over to here. Here's a little sneak peek at that mouse that would be hidden away. I think Lauren drew this, so I don't think it was drawn live, so I don't think players have seen it. Which brings us to the feedback question. So lots of feedback questions going on this Feedback Friday. This one has to do with the gift of the day. So we were asking about the gift of the day actually quite a while ago. I think it was in December during a Feedback Friday, if not November, about would you like to see the amount of time you have to claim a gift be shortened a bit, but relatively more useful items. So we went ahead and we did that with the launch of the Great Winter Hunt. Now at the exact same time, we also changed what all the gifts of the day were, but nobody really saw those until the Great Winter Hunt came to a close because it was festive gifts during the Great Winter Hunt. So the free gifts of the day, they now expire after 32 hours after they're sent, that is, and they've been that way since the start of the Great Winter Hunt. However, all the gifts are relatively more useful items. So what do you think of some of the updated items that you've been able to see now that the Great Winter Hunt is over? And what do you think of the change, and what do you think of those new items? Yeah, certainly positive feedback. Great. Gift update is good. Yeah, a little bit of variety. Definitely something more useful than endless collectibles. Now, the collectibles are still in the mix, but they just won't show up as often. See, the claiming is a little short because now that they're more useful items, we don't want the main way of getting these useful items to be through having a ton of friends that play the game, because that kind of widens the gap between someone who's playing solo or just with 1 and 2 friends versus somebody who's playing with hundreds of friends. We still want the main way to collect these things to be by going to that area, hunting, and putting in the effort there. And the gifts are meant as a nice little bonus as well, a way for your friends to help you out. So that's why when we made the things or made the gifts more useful, we've shortened the claim window so you can't claim as many of them. So going for quality over quantity. All right, it is 36 hours, a day and a half. I just failed at adding 12 to 24. Now again, we might iterate a little bit more on this because ideally not having it be based on time would be nice if it was more based on the day in which it was sent. But this was kind of a low effort change that we could make without having to completely recode the whole gift system from scratch, go through all the testing process all again. So we're hoping it was something that we could do, low effort but high impact and make the gifts better and more useful. But we might revisit it in the future as well. No matter what we set that claim time to as well, a bit of an issue. There'll always be that time zone lineup weirdness. So that's why it's a little bit longer than 24 hours, but not 48. So that is a bit of an awkward. There's a little bit of an awkward edge case on the gift system, but we might revisit it again in the future as well. A question from the chat of why you can't claim or send the same amount that you can claim is because it used to be like that a long time ago. I think you could send 10 and claim 10, but it kind of felt awkward. There's something psychological. When you receive a gift, you want to reciprocate. And so if you can only send the same number back that you can claim, inevitably you start getting gifts that you can't claim and you can't reciprocate. You can't say thank you by sending back the same thing. And so that's why we've made the send limit much higher than the claim limit. So as you keep getting those gifts, you can still click and send that gift back to the person and say thank you for the gesture of sending me that item, but you've reached your claim limit. And so that kind of alleviates some of that awkwardness. Yeah, and a good point from the chat as well. It helps give everybody a chance to get those gifts as well. So if you reach your claim limit and you have friends that you want to send gifts to and you can't, and then they're kind of left out if they don't have other friends to send them gifts. So it just kind of helps to make sure everybody can receive gifts, because there's lots of people can send out the gifts without meaning that you can just claim tons and tons and tons of things as well. A question about the mobile app. Any updates incoming? Well, make sure the app is up to date so that you can play the Lunar New Year event. We updated it with a interface in the camp section that's floating around at the bottom there. Let's see, it hangs out at the bottom of the app. So make sure you're up to date and you can play the Lunar New Year event from your mobile phone, from your Android or iOS device. Track your progress, check out your cheese. There was one little issue that I noticed was if you are in the fungal cavern and you arm dumpling cheese, the mobile app will tell you to check your setup because it is pretty well hard-coded what types of cheese work in the fungal cavern, so we're looking at fixing that up. We kind of recorded that bug today and we'll hopefully get that fixed up. A question about the Lunar New Year event. Does the double loot apply to Fiery Warpath loot? Yes, if you'd get a Sandblasted Metal, a Sphinx Crystal, or an Oasis Bead while your lantern is lit when you capture the Warmonger, you will receive 2 instead of 1. Works for the Minotaur loot, works for the Monstrous Black Widow. Pretty well almost every item in the game. There was a few exceptions. It won't double candle drops, dumpling cheese drops, or treasure map clues. And basically, anytime you see in the journal the words, additionally, the mouse dropped the following loot, those items in the list, those should be doubled in most cases. It's items that don't make the mouse drop the loot, but instead put a bonus item in your inventory. So off the top of my head, I believe the golden anchoring charms work that way, where if you're hunting through a treasure zone and you have your golden anchoring charm out, it doesn't make the mouse drop a sand dollar. The charm finds the sand dollar and puts it in your inventory, so that won't be doubled because technically it's not a mouse dropping loot. So look for the phrase, additionally the mouse dropped the following loot in the journal, to have an idea of the items that should double. You can also see that in the mobile app. You have to go to the journal section. So you have to tap your journal down at the bottom, reading entries if the internet works, and there you can see all the effects going on there. And Michelle is grossed out by mouse droppings. Yes, we only double mouse droppings. Anything that isn't a mouse dropping, sorry, it doesn't get doubled. Which brings us to the same way we conclude most Feedback Fridays, with a trivia question, and Larry will have rewards. Hopefully I have this answer right. tried looking it up, and I believe this is right, but I'm sure hunters will correct me if I have the wrong answer. And then we'll sort that out as well. So regardless, Larry's going to have a reward. But the trivia question is, and the answer is not 48, 42, 89, or 42. The question is, which Zodiac Jade base was the first one to be released? 89 is wrong. I don't remember the 89 Jade base or the 19 or the 22 Jade base. I don't believe those exist. The orange Jade base, I don't believe that exists either. Whoa, that's a lot of spam. Okay, somebody said dragon. I don't quite know who said it first. Let me scroll up here. Inyo 2, if that's how you say your moniker there, it said dragon first. Dragon is correct. It is the dragon Jade base. Laptop's heating up. Just went to type. My palms got a little toasty. And I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the first of the Zodiac Jade bases. It was sold by Ronza in 2012, January 2012. And the reward link, let me test this. I don't think I clicked it yet. Make sure I get my reward. Even though I got the answer right, so that's good. I guess I get a reward. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's nice. All right, so the reward link is posted in the chat, and if you're watching this recorded, head to the tavern section where there is a summary, and it will be there for the next week, which is when the link expires as well. And I suppose I could put it up there as well. Let's see here. Let me take a screenshot of a URL and put the screenshot up there. There you go. Where's my picture-in-picture? All right. Show a picture. Sorry about that. Wires crossed. For whatever reason, whenever I change what's in the picture-in-picture, the software wants to play a video instead, so I gotta click to go back. It's very odd. One day I will actually update the software. Maybe they corrected that problem. But and it looks like I said the magic word because there's a lot of Ronza questions now. No news to share. No one's seen her. Don't know when she's coming. I would venture a guess not anytime soon, though. So if you've been hoarding gold, I think it's safe to spend gold because I don't think she's coming anytime soon. Someone's guessing in the chat there. One day is probably a correct answer. One day she will come. Ryan's asking about the Valentine's. Currently, we're looking at right now. Actually, I think Andrew is currently sorting out the Valentine's mini event. It will run for just a few days. It's something very small, chance to go and capture the event mice. You can collect some Valentine's charms, which have a rather juicy attraction bonus on them. And it'll be similar to, I think in 2015, we did a little stockpile thing as well. So there'll be a few areas in the kingdom where you can show up. You can capture the event mice. They have some interesting loot drops, but it's just going to be here for probably 3-4 days. Probably start on a Monday and end on a Thursday. And we've been toning back, actually, as we're brainstorming all these new high-level areas, we've been toning back some of the events a little bit to give ourselves more time to work on some of these new areas as well. There are certainly a ton of Grand Duke, Duchess, and a ton of Archduck. I may as well just keep saying Archduchess hunters in the game, but there's no area, so that's kind of stressing us out a little bit. Definitely need an Archduke area in the game because there are a lot now. As we've added more high-level areas, you can start to earn more points. People are leveling up a little bit quicker. There's definitely a demand for more Grand Duke, Duchess, Archduck levels, or areas, I should say. Question from the chat. Will the events start on Thursdays from now on? Well, this one started, we usually start on a Tuesday. It just kind of works out really well for us where Friday is just a very natural deadline. I find if you give yourself a deadline and it's in the middle of the week, it ends up spilling over to Friday anyway. So there's something about saying it's due on Friday kind of really helps create, I don't know, just flows better. I find that's a workflow that works well for us anyway. And that's typically too right before, maybe on the Thursday or Wednesday, we sort of in the coding world, we pull it into master, we reintegrate the code, and it gives us a few days as well to run through everything in a very completed state in its final release candidate. Tested over the weekend, and then there's that Monday before release is any little nagging loose ends, a little typo to fix or one last minute tweak, as long as it's not completely game changing tweak or tiny bug fixes. We have that one day to take care of those fixes, and then it comes out on a Tuesday. So that's why typically you see releases happen on a Tuesday. However, especially with a real world time sensitive event like Lunar New Year, we would prefer the event to start before the actual Lunar New Year, the conclusion of the real world event. So we didn't want to wait till the next Tuesday, so we launched that on a Thursday. That was a long-winded explanation to basically say no, all the events won't start on Thursdays, but they will when it's appropriate to do so. And as Michelle points out, releasing on a Friday usually comes back to haunt us, because if there's a problem that comes up 24 hours later, nobody's around, and you gotta find somebody. You might be out at the grocery store running an errand, or who knows, on vacation, out visiting family, and all of a sudden you're needed. So that's typically something we try to avoid. It's also a nice thing about the Tuesday as well. It's early in the week, so if a few little tiny errors come up, or if there's an issue or something that needs to be addressed, everyone's here in the office ready to collaborate on that. It's just a little easier to coordinate than making phone calls, texting, and people working on the weekend. Close this reward. Yeah, and as Ryan points out, you can gather feedback on Friday too. Yeah, that's a good point. And the Lunar New Year event is still quite recently released, so I can't even get full feedback. So if it was out on the Tuesday, I bet you more people would have their lanterns, start using their candles. Could ask where people are going to be using their candles or where they've used them already. And Julian in the chat noticed Larry has a whole lot of temporal turbines. I believe those are left over from the Great Winter Hunt. He was stocking up to create all those sleighs for everyone. Questions about the King's giveaway? No immediate plans, but it is the type of thing that would work well while we're working on another release. We could launch another giveaway maybe, but it's sort of in the back of our minds, but nothing to really share. If we did do it again, it would probably be similar to the way we did the last King's giveaway, where there were prize chests open and you were collecting keys. That went over rather well as a way to bring back the Rainbow Scroll case. That proved to be very popular, so that's kind of something special everyone can earn during the giveaway. But nothing more specific on that to share. A Valentine trap, I'll mention that as a suggestion in the chat. I'll mention that maybe when I head back, but there are no plans to have a Valentine trap because it'll be rather short, just a few days. You can encounter the Valentine's event mice, the Cupid, the Forever Alone mouse, etc. Collect a few Valentine's charms, and that'll be it. Not too much of a story to work through. I don't think there would be an adventure for that particular event, but we're still kind of pulling it together. And Andrew's going through the whole Valentine stuff today and come up with a plan. And Brian's asking about something Jacob mentioned last week about finding various keys in hidden locations. I covered that earlier in Feedback Friday, so when I post the summary, you can kind of read through what I said, and I welcome more feedback as well in the summary thread. We'll be looking to kind of maybe start firming up some of these ideas over the next week or two, so I welcome feedback from hunters because that helps us decide which direction to take things. And on that note, at the 40-minute mark, we will wrap up Feedback Friday. So that was a rather large Feedback Friday. Lots of feedback questions. I've taken down some notes here. I'll post that in the summary, as well as if you're curious to look over the behind-the-scenes section there of what areas we're planning to work on this year. The Fort Rocks expansion. Welcome feedback in there. Help us make a decision on where we should take some of those areas. Other than that, thank you for joining me this week. Happy hunting. Good luck in the Lunar New Year event. May your double loot drops be something of significant value, or even if you're just in a farming location, well, that's a much more guaranteed way to get a whole lot more of double loot. So whichever avenue you choose, good luck in your pursuit of double lunar lucky loot. We'll say that, that's a tongue twister. Happy hunting, everybody. Have a good weekend.